Anyway, let's get to what we were here for. Our movie of the week, Voodoo Woman, from
1957.
1957.
This actually wasn't too bad as B movies go.
Hmm.
Had an interesting monster and a kind of threadbare plot, but you know,
Yeah.
but it also starred Touch
Yeah,
Connors.
we got last week we had a Mike Connors, so now
Yeah,
we got a Touch Connors month.
yeah. That was when back then people had those flashy nicknames like Flash and Touch, Speedy.
Tab. Yeah, well, Connors, I guess the nickname Touch came from the fact that he was an athlete and he was like a football player or a basketball player, and he had the touch for either scoring goals, for throwing touchdowns or hoops. I don't remember what sport it was, but yeah, that's why he used the nickname Touch Connors. Rock Hudson would be another one. Stuff like that. So.
Yeah, Rock or Chaz. All
What
those
was the one from the
dopey
Beverly
nicknames.
Hillbillies? Dash Rip Rock. That was my favorite one.
Dash, Rip
Dash
Rock.
Rip Rock. That was my favorite one.
Oh
That's
man,
a great name.
funny as hell.
Yeah, and then Marla English, who I think this was her last movie. She ended up after this getting married. She was pretty nasty in this movie. She was pretty rough stuff. I think she was a Playboy playmate too, or was in the magazine. I don't know. This Mad Doctor Tom Conway, he was George Sanders' brother.
I know the one guy who played the doctor. I think.
Yeah, that was Tom Conway. Yeah,
Um,
he was George Sanders' brother.
yeah, Tom Conway.
He was
Yeah, and
he was a
he
well-known actor in the 40s, but by the late 50s, I guess he was doing Voodoo Woman.
yeah he well he played the
Yeah.
Falcon
Uh-huh.
and a bunch of other. Yeah, so he was sort of a heartthrob kind of guy. But that's the one thing you look at these guys and they're so skinny and thin. But they're supposed to be like super tough and whatever. But
Yeah, Tom didn't.
it's
Tom
like,
looked like
dude,
he was sleepwalking through this movie. He was okay in some scenes, but he didn't really move much. He made faces every once in a while.
yeah, it was like it can widen his eyes and
Yeah, and look scared or whatever. But I
yeah.
mean, I'm sure he got his $2,000 and whatever.
So this starts out with you see this voodoo ritual. You don't know what country you're in, but obviously it's some kind of tropical country.
Yeah, I would think so.
And a lot of blacks are in it with spears, and they're all kind of overweight. Well, most of them anyway, and they got paint and like ostrich feathers in their hair. And Tom Conway's there with his giant feathered
I was
hair.
telling a friend of mine, yeah, that's a pretty cool look. I think I need to get one of those and walk around here with that big.
You need a couple of feather
Yeah, a
dusters
couple of
to
feather dusters and a dead raccoon on my head.
finish your look. So he's doing this ritual with this girl, and everybody's dancing around, with the drums and waving spears and stuff. And then you see this woman. She's blonde. She's in this hut, and she's trapped
She's in her room,
in this
that she's not allowed to go out.
yeah in a room, and she hears the drum, and it's freaking her out. And then this guy
Yeah,
Bobo
Bobo. What a
comes
name,
in.
Bobo. It's like,
Bobo and
can you
Chaka,
come up with something better than
the witch,
Bobo, like.
he's either a chief or a witch doctor. His name was Chaka. But anyway, so she's she goes, "You got to help me escape," and he goes, "I'll tell you what, I'll bring you some nice tea to soothe you down."
Yeah.
So then it goes back, and Chaka, the chief, is doing some ritual to this woman, and then Tom Conway injects her with something, and you don't know what's going on, and it's again, everybody's dancing around with spears and beating drums and stuff, and they're putting her in a trance, and they're giving her special powers, the claw of a cougar, the venom of a snake and some other things to turn her into some kind of voodoo monster or something. Then it switches to a bar, and you have this couple and this woman. What was her name? Mary.
Marla English.
Well, they called her
Marla English
Marilyn.
was the actress.
Marla English. She's she's like really tough and
They used to call her
you know.
Marla the Body English. Body English.
So she's all like tough and she pushes her boyfriend around, and then you see this guy drinking and looking at them, and apparently he hired them to help him go to the jungle to get.
They want a gold statue or something, right? Or something.
Yeah, to get some gold or something like that. So she gets her. She's like, hey, tell the guy, go over and demand from the guy what he, why we're going into the jungle. So they go over, and he's like, no, and I'm not telling you yet. And she's trying to cozy up to him, and he's like, man, you're a viper, poison. And she says, so are you, and they threaten each other and stuff.
And her boyfriend is another kind of B-movie kind of actor, Lance Fuller.
He's sort of handsome.
And there was a funny scene when they're sitting at a table. I forgot, they're having an argument, and he looked at Lance Fuller, and he goes, you're going to marry her? And I was like, damn, dude. That's some good advice.
So she sneaks away to search his room, and to distract him, the bartender sends over this girl, and there's she's singing a song, and he's all like distracted and looking at her and stuff. But he's old. He's like back then he's probably in his 40s. So as he's being distracted, they go search his room, and they find a gold statue with diamond eyes and stuff. So then he gets suspicious about where they are. So he buys a gun from the barman, and it's like, he's checking to see if it's loaded, and the barman's going, would I sell you a unloaded gun? And the guy goes, yeah, probably you would. So then he goes up to his room, and he finds them searching, and he threatens them, and she pulls out her gun and threatens him. So he goes to shoot her, and the gun doesn't work. So then she shoots and kills the guy.
She shoots him like 5 times, too, just to make sure.
Yeah. She shoots him once, and he falls down, and then she thinks,
let me give you a couple more rounds for good measure.
Yeah, and apparently the reason she's there is because she had to leave the States because she killed her old boyfriend.
Real piece of work.
Right, and it turns out the guy who was shot and killed, he hired a guide to take him into the jungle to a place, a bandolay. So the bartender comes up, and he's like, oh, you shot him. Oh, it's we have to get him buried and stuff, and do stuff and pay people off to make sure the cops don't come here, because this is little rickety town apparently in the jungle somewhere. And then it goes back to in that they say the boyfriend is going to impersonate the guy they killed, because the guy doesn't know what the guy looks like. So then it switches back to the jungle and Tom Conway, and they're still doing the voodoo ritual. Then you see he injects her with something, and then you see the woman's feet change into something like monster feet with claws and whatever. And then
you know what that monster is, by the way? It's a recycled monster. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, part of it's from the she creature.
Yeah, and then like a Halloween mask or something, and then they put like a dress on it or something. It's pretty
basic.
It's pretty bizarre costume, and they go out of their way not to. I don't think there's ever one time in this movie where it was showed fully clearly. It was all the monster was walking through the bushes. You could see it, but it was through the bushes and through from far away. And even at the end, it's like the monster barely comes out of the whatever,
Yeah, it was probably a rush job, and I think the face looked like a skull
Like a
with
fright mask or
fangs.
something. I don't think they were
Yeah,
proud of
yeah.
it, but whatever.
They kept it in the dark. Although sometimes when they do that, it makes the monster
Now,
look
I'll tell you
better.
one thing. The trailer for this movie, you will see the monster
Uh-huh.
more clearly in the trailer than you will in this
Really,
movie.
I'll have to look up the
Yeah.
trailer. So anyway, so then the blonde tries to escape, but she's thwarted. But there's a guard outside, and with a spear, another fat guy, and he stops her, and she's all freaky and whatever. So then the show and the barkeeper, the voodoo items, and he's like, oh, he gets all freaky and stuff, and says, yeah, but there's a lot of gold where we're going. And then they're like, oh, okay, so you impersonate the guy who you shot and killed with the guide, and he'll take you there. So then the guy comes in and he says, I'm looking for so and so, and he says, are you are you the guy? And he goes, yeah. So
That's
then
Touch Connors,
Marla,
right?
yeah, Touch Connors,
Mike
Mike Connors.
Connors, yeah, Mannix.
So then Marla comes in and she's talking to him and asking him like where they're going, and and whatever. And he's like, well, I assumed, or I thought I was hired by a guy, and my boss is a man. And she says, yeah, but I'm the man's boss. And she's like trying to flirt with him and stuff. So they find the map and they're making plans on where to go, and how to get there and stuff. So then you see them in the jungle, and they show some jungle scenes of monkeys and whatnot. And then she comes up and she starts flirting with him again, and her fiance sees that, what was it, Lance, and he gets all jealous and whatever. So right away there's going to be tension between Connors and Lance. And then you hear the voodoo drums and like, uh-oh, it's and he's like telling them, you got to behave out here, don't shoot them, don't do anything, don't touch any of their stuff, and just ignore them and they'll ignore you, because if you don't, they're going to kill you. And she's like, I don't care, I'm not afraid. So then they're making camp, and then you see there's tension between more tension between Lance and Mike Connors.
Well, because you see Lance at one point sees Mike Connors like grabbing her hand or something, and he kind of like, hey, that's my that's my murderous shrew.
So they see one of the natives of the jungle tribe that the doctor lives with. So Lance goes to shoot him, and Connor says don't. He says, oh, I'll shoot him. You can't tell me what to do. I'll shoot him and stop him. And it's like, no. So there's a fight there, and and then it switches back to the jungle lab, and then you see the doctor injecting the girl, and it's this native girl, and he's doing stuff, and the blonde is which turns out to be his wife. She sneaks into the lab and she sees that and she screams and she's all upset, and he's arguing with her, and he's, I'm building a new being, and that way the people back in the States, they'll no longer laugh at me, and I'll build a race of super people, blah 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 blah.
Race of atomic supermen like Bella. And
yeah, she wants to escape, and he goes, if you try to escape, I will kill you, and stuff. So then he injects her, and then she turns into the monster, which again you don't really see. She's got like a fright wig on, and the scary rubber mask, and you can see parts of it are from the she creature, and I think the monster was played by
Paul Blaisdell, who made the costume. Yeah,
Blaisdell, yeah. And he was very prolific, and a lot of his stuff was, especially if they didn't really shoot it in bright light, was pretty creepy.
I would say that his stuff looked better in pictures, but the she creature was pretty neat, but it didn't move real good, and they look good in Famous Monsters, his creatures.
Yeah, and it had the she creature had those stone breasts.
Yep. Plus Plus, of course, Blaisdell were cheap, so that was the main thing for AIP.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So then he's gonna have her kill and destroy a village, and the Chaka, the chief, says, "Oh, you can't because she's a good girl. She won't kill." So then he has her destroy the village, and then there's a woman and a child, and he's like, "Kill them," because the doctor is controlling the monster through telepathy. It's like, kill, kill, and she goes to kill, and then something stops her, and then you see a shadow where she transforms from the monster back to the girl, and he's like, "Oh, you're you're useless to me. Go back
Yeah,
to
because
camp."
the original woman that he was using, she wasn't a killer.
Right.
She was just a regular
a
native
good
or whatever.
girl.
He saw
Yeah.
a killer in somebody else.
Yeah. So then they're back at camp and they're talking about the voodoo stuff, and she's still trying to flirt with Marla's still trying to flirt with Mike Connors, and he's having nothing of her. And he's. So then there are the native, and he's telling them about voodoo, and it's how dangerous it is, and don't get involved. And she's still trying to get him to under her spell, so to speak. So then Chaka goes, "Oh, the white men are coming, and it's dangerous." And the doctor says, "Well, I'm going to send the girl monster out to kill them." And they're like, "Well, she won't kill them because it's not in her. She's a good girl and stuff." So then you see the doctor. Oh, then again, there's another fight between Connors and Lance, and then he knocks Lance out, and then the girl Marla pulls the gun on him, and they tie him up, and then the what do you call it? I lost my place. Oh, I think Lance goes looking for gold.
Right, yeah.
Goes to the camp, and then in the meantime, the doctor's having dinner with his wife, and she's like, "Let me go home," and he's like, "Well, when you married me, you knew I was going to do this."
And there were scenes early on
And
where she
then,
could hear his experiments, and she would be freaking out. So she's
she's
kind of like mentally disturbed by what's going on.
Yeah. So at the camp, the guys. And then in the meantime, you see the doctor inject the girl and turn her into the monster, and I think that's the first time you kind of see the whole monster, but not clearly. But so then he through telepathy he sends the girl to the camp to try and kill the white people, and who's there is Marla and Connors, who's tied up. And she doesn't realize. And in the meantime, like, Lance is looking for the gold and stuff. So, when she can't kill, she turns back into her from the monster to the girl. So she's walking along, and Lance sees her, and he hides. And as she walks past, he grabs her and is wrestling with her, and she bites him. So then he kills her. And
this was the original she creature.
Yeah, the original monster.
Yeah, the native girl.
So
this gets real convoluted.
Yeah, it does. Towards
For
there.
A simple movie, it gets real convoluted.
Yeah, so Mike Connors is they go in the camp, and then they find that the villagers find the girl is dead. So that they're like, okay, all the white people have to be killed, and the doctor says, I'm looking at my notes.
Yeah, well, didn't Lance got killed, and then what was left was, at some point, Marla English, Mike Connors, and they when I think when that happened, when he ordered them to kill, they got like they got tied to like stakes or whatever, you know what I mean? And they were gonna get sacrificed.
So he.
Lance Fuller's dead. He
so
got shot by Marla. He's out of the picture already.
Yes, that's right. Marla shot him, and then they get captured by the natives because they want to sacrifice the white men or the white people to the voodoo god. Yeah. So he captures them and he brings them into his house. That's where they're held captive. And he's talking to Marla, and he realizes she can kill because she's has evil. He says she was born with voodoo in her blood or whatever.
The people that they're going to kill is the wife of Tom Conway and Connors.
Right. So then he convinces her, says, well, if you become a voodoo priestess, they will give you all your gold because they will see you as some kind of god. She's like, okay. So he convinces her to go through the ritual, and it's the same ritual that turned the girl into the monster. So he gives her the injection, and they do the same ritual with the different venom and the claws and whatnot. Meanwhile, Mike Connors discovers the blonde wife, and they he tries to figure out what's going on. He says, yeah, but your husband says you're crazy and paranoiac. I think that's the word he used. And she says, no, my husband's doing weird experiments and stuff. So then there's a guard watching them, and so while the guard's asleep, Mike Connor sneaks into the lab and he sees all these chemicals and stuff, including like gasoline and gunpowder and whatever, that comes back to the woman. And he says, okay, you are you wait here. And at some point Bobo gave her a gun, and he was going to go to the nearest town, and she wrote him a letter. But when he went out and tried to escape, the guard threw a spear at him and killed him. So she's got a rifle, and she's got herself barricaded in here. So then Mike Connors comes back to her, and he knocks on her window, and she's like, he says, I've been to your husband's lab. I say, you're not the crazy one. And, so I'm going to try and escape. And when I run, you wait a bit, and then you follow, and you try to get to the town because I'll lead the guard away. In the meantime, the doctor turns Marilyn into a monster, and she's all like, well, and then after turning into a monster, she doesn't realize she became a monster.
No, she just wakes up from it like, what happened?
She just wakes up
dreaming?
I'm going to be a priestess. So Mike Connors tries to escape, and then he gets captured and pulled back. So then Chaka says, we have to kill the white people tonight. And then the doctor says, okay. So he convinces Marla that at tonight's blood ritual, she's going to become a full priestess. And so then the natives come, and they get... Oh, no, Mike Connors escapes somehow, again, because the guard was sleeping. And then he's leading the guard astray, so the wife tries to... she grabs a gun and gets, dressed to run in the jungle. And so she tries to escape, but in the meantime, the doctor has turned Marla back into the monster, who captures her and brings her to the blood ritual. And then then you see Mike Cahn is fighting with the guard, and he kills the guard, and then he hears the blonde scream. So he says, "All right, the blonde is going to be sacrificed." And Chaka, the chief, says, "But isn't that your wife?" She says, "Yeah, but she tried to betray me, so she's no longer."
He doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't care anymore. So then, the doctor's goes in the woods with, and with the monster, and he says, "You wait here." So, the monster is in the jungle watching the ritual. And then Mike Cahn, he's sneaking in, and then he gets captured because he's trying to save the blonde. He gets captured. They tie him to the same stake as the blonde is. And then, they're all fighting and everybody's dancing, and then one of the natives say to Chaka, the chief, that typical mumbling fake language, and then Chaka goes, "And you too, doctor, we have to sacrifice you." And so they wrestle with the doctor, and then the doctor calls in the monster, and the monster comes and it scares everybody away. And then as that's all happening, there's all chaos. Mike Cahn escapes from his bonds, and he unties the blonde. And then the monster comes, and she sees all the gold stuff, and she kills Chaka during all that melee of everybody running around trying to escape from the monster. And then she sees the doctor and the gold stuff, and then she goes to it, and then she realizes it's not real gold, it was fake gold. And he's laughing, he's saying, "Oh, that's not the real gold. What need do you have for gold? Because you're a monster and stuff. And besides, it's not real gold. The only real gold was the idol that Chaka had when he fell into the pit." So then the monster kills the doctor, and afterwards she changes back into Marilyn, and then she looks and she sees the idol on the edge of the pit, so she goes to grab it and falls into the pit.
And that's the end.
And no, then Touch, Mike Connors.
No. That Mike Connors and the girl had already escaped. They were already getting ready to go. And
they made Molotov cocktails, and they threw it at the natives, and they escaped. So they're back in the bar.
Yeah, they're back in the bar. Yeah.
And the crooked barkeep says, "Oh, did you you're back. What about Lance and Marilyn? The Marla and Lance." And says, "Oh, well, I think they're dead and they're never coming back." And then you see the monster rise from the pit with the golden idol. Then it ends.
Yeah, that was the last scene. Last scene was Marla coming out of the pit with
right.
And a big question mark, the end or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Which they did a lot back then,
Yeah, that was
kind of open, the end question mark.
That was the thing. Yeah, I got confused in the plot line a little bit. I mean.
Yeah, and it kept going. The problem sometimes is these things go back and forth a lot. So, as the action's happening, it gets interrupted with other scenes of other people doing stuff.
To fill it up to 77
minutes.
Yeah,
and you're trying like, what? Wait, yeah. And it's not always linear.
No.
That would make it easier. But as monster movies go, it wasn't
It's not
too
bad. It drags a bit. The storyline gets convoluted, as you could see, by what we were explaining to you. And the monster, it almost feels like they didn't want people to take a good look at it, so they go, "Wait, that looks like the she creature." They did all they could do to hide the fact that it was a she creature. They put a mask on it. They covered it with an apron, But and then they made it like kind of, you could see it, but it's like in the woods or whatever. So they did not want you to see that it was a recycled monster.
It did have different gloves, monster gloves on it. They were hands, because in the she creature she had like That was almost like big claws or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the best thing about the she creature was the mask it wore.
Yeah. The sea creature looks like a great painting on the cover of Monster World or whatever.
Oh God, yeah. Well, a lot of them did it. I mean,
yeah.
And then usually the mask was the best part of the costume.
This was later remade. Oh, Larry Buchanan remade this. And which one was it? It wasn't. I don't. It was a combination of. Was it Creature of Destruction? No, Creature of Destruction was a remake of the She Creature. There was a Creature of Destruction was a remake of the She Creature. Now, was this one? No, this one wasn't remade.
Curse of the. Yeah, it was.
Was this a Swamp Creature? Was this a Swamp Creature?
Yeah, Curse of the Swamp Creature.
It was Curse of the Swamp Creature. Okay, all right. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, that's an even more ridiculous looking monster in that one.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did that a lot. Remake movies.
They did it with comic books too, believe it or not. Those Eerie Publication comic books, they were remakes of old 50s comics. So it was a lesson learned from cheap exploitation movies.
Yeah, I mean it's a fairly simple plot, and the Swamp Creature, it had like a ping pong ball eyeballs, and it looked like a really. I mean, it wasn't even a good mask.
It was iconic, but it's not. It's kind of funny, but I like it. It's a good late night. It's a good late night movie. This is better production than Swamp Creature. But it's convoluted. For a simple plot, it's convoluted, and they just padded a lot. And there were times when it got kind of slow, but it's worth checking out. It's worthwhile. It's not one of the best. It's not one of the great AIP movies, but it's got its charms to it or whatever. Like all those movies do. Especially because the poster was probably cooler than this movie poster was okay. It wasn't that. The Sea Creatures movie poster was a lot better, but
and it played as a double bill with the Undead.
That's a better movie.
Yeah,
that's a Corman movie.
That's the one where you see the skeleton. The poster is a skeleton opening up its shroud, and you see a coffin there.
That's a better movie with Allison Hayes, and that's a better movie. But this was the AIP at first was making movies, and they saw that their movies were being put as the B feature, so Arkoff decided, hey, let's just make double features, and that way we can get all the money instead of being relegated to the second feature. So that's what they did. Corman got the A, and the director of this movie was Edward Cahn. He got the B, picture or whatever. But it's fondly remembered. This movie, I mean, it's just goofy. It's got Connors in it, so he's always fun. And Marla English was chewing up the scenery pretty good. So
yeah, she
Tom
was.
Conway was kind of a mad doctor. He was a mad doctor, but I kind of was hoping for a little more theatrics. He was kind of restrained. It looks like he was just reading the script, and that was it.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's like he was just walking through some of it, and was like, oh,
Connors was good. Lance Fuller was good. The natives were funny. I mean, it's worth checking out. There's other AIP movies that are better than this, but this is by no means the worst.
It was better than I expected.
Did you ever see this when you were a kid on Creature Feature or anything?
No, I never saw this one.
I wonder if it got a lot of airplay on TV or not. I'm not sure. Because I never saw it on TV either.
Yeah. I'm not... Yeah, sometimes, depending on the kind of monster they had, they wouldn't show stuff. So usually if the monster had like a skeleton kind of face, unless it was an actual skull, but if the monster had a skeleton kind of face, they would sometimes, at least in my area, they would sometimes not show those movies. I guess because they thought it was too grotesque or vulgar.
I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, when I was a kid, a lot of the AIPs were Colossal Beast, the Amazing Colossal Man, stuff
Mhm.
like that. Those are the ones that used to get played the most or whatever.
A lot of yeah,
And for some
yeah.
reason or another, late night, those Larry Buchanan remakes, those were on TV all the time on late night TV. Curse of Swamp Creature, Creature Destruction, the year 2889, Mars Needs Women. They were always on 2 in the morning. They got more airplay than Voodoo Woman. I don't know why. I guess because they were in color. That's the other thing, color.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when color came in, it's almost like
Yeah.
black and white movies were
Yeah,
poison.
yeah. I mean, I think that's got something to do with it. Not completely, but because to me, it's like I saw more of those Buchanan movies that I saw. Like, I don't remember ever seeing not of this Earth on TV. Voodoo Woman, She Creature wasn't shown. I never saw that until it came out on DVD. The Colossal Beast, the 50-Foot Woman, stuff like that. Yeah, the Edgar Allan Poe movies, color, stuff like that. But and then the Buchanans because they were in color. I think that was it. I think in the '60s they really wanted color movies because people wanted to see them. I guess regardless of how good or bad they were, because they were like, hey, color.
Color, yeah, exactly. And then usually we didn't get a color TV till I was, I don't know, like 13, 14. My mom won it in some kind of raffle, and I think it was like a 17-inch screen
Right.
and weighed like, I don't know, like 100 pounds.
Right. Yeah, and you had it in your living room.
But yeah, and anytime you'd go to I would go to somebody's house that had color TV. The color was always jacked up. Everybody was either orange.
Yeah.
Or it was like the picture was all fuzzy and stuff. It's like, turn it down, man. Jeez. Well, it's got color. I want to see the color.
No, it's true. It really is. I mean, sure, they were still playing black and white movies on like the low budget UHF channels, like stuff like Brain That Wouldn't Die and Dementia 13, and they were doing that, but they really like and of course the old movies were on late night. But as far as horror movies go, I mean, I think they were really pushing the color movies. That's the only reason I can see why. Well, the Larry Buchanan ones were made for television, so that's the other thing. They were specifically made for TV, and that's why they were so cheap and whatever. You know what I mean? And of course there was the Universals that were always on television. That's because they were the Universal movies and stuff like that. But
like you said, usually late at night, they didn't want to. I guess because who was up was the older people, and they remember, or they didn't mind.
They didn't mind watching Humphrey Bogart or whatever.
Black and white. Yeah.
But by the time of '67, '68, color. All the TV shows were color, in color. Hey. Everybody was getting color. So that was like a big, and they were going out of their way to make things as colorful as they could too. So, I'm trying to think. I know Voodoo Woman was in film packages because a friend of mine who used to work at a TV station had a print of it. So it was playing in TV stations, but boy, I don't remember ever seeing it, honestly. And I would have recorded it in the '80s if it played. I would have recorded it. I don't remember ever seeing it, so I don't know what the deal is. I mean, there was other movies that I remember seeing that besides this. But anyway, I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's better, like I said, than the Buchanan movie. So I don't know. Maybe it played it. Maybe it played in other areas more often than it did in my neck of the woods.
Maybe there was somebody who didn't want it shown, and or wasn't made part of the package.
Because back in those old days, you could live in a town 50 miles away, and they would show completely different movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah, sometimes my cable system, they would show stuff from Philadelphia. When I was living in Brooklyn, they should show stuff from Philadelphia on the channel up until 12 o'clock. Then they would switch over to, I don't know, racing or something like that. But a lot of the movies, there was like an 11 o'clock or 10:30 uh, show that would show, B movies and stuff, and they had a completely different list of movies they would play, like Jack the Giant Killer and a bunch of other things that was like, oh wow, this is cool. But again, because it started when it did, I would usually get to see the first 2/3 of a movie, and then it would switch over to racing.
That's crappy. That is crappy.
Yeah, but they just did it for filler. They didn't really give a crap what people want, and it was on that local station.
Well, what I remember was like we lived in Miami, and we got shows, but we also our TV guide gave us West Palm Beach listing,
right.
And I could see there was movies playing at West Palm on their creature feature. Oh man, I've never seen that, but I couldn't get it, so it was kind of like. You're only 50 miles away, maybe a little more, and you've got a different world.
Right.
And that's what the world was back then. Now everybody watches the same, except on Roku maybe. But if you got over-the-air TV, you got the same channels. There's the
stuff. Yeah, that's true. Even Connecticut, Jersey, they were in upstate New York. They were in our area, depending on where you lived in the New York City area. So, like, if you live north of the city, you would also get some different channels which played different movies, and it's like, oh, damn, I can't see that.
Or TV shows, too.
Oh,
they're playing Ultraman in West Palm, and we don't get it here,
Yeah.
Now, of course, every once in a while, the TV stations, I don't know if they were trading, but then sometimes some of those movies would end up in your neck of the woods. I don't know if they were trading prints or the films were making the rounds or whatever. I don't know how it worked, but that did happen every once in a while. But I do remember that, there was people that lived in Miami, north of us, like not in Hollywood, but like northern Lauderdale, and their cable was able to get the West Palm channels and the Miami channel, so they would get all of that stuff. Well, we didn't because we were way south. So, it was just a different time, a different kind of television or whatever, you know what I mean? But
a lot more local programs that were very entertaining.
The only local programs that I ever see that I remember, because I don't get local television, were the news. Now it's just the news.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. I remember like in the 80s, let's just say maybe the 80s and probably the late 80s. In the local channel down there, 7. Would play, Ironside, Rockford Files, and then at 6 o'clock you would get the news, and then after 7 you'd get the NBC news, and you get the NBC programming. So you'd get soap operas during the day because it was NBC. But then when that ended, I think it was soap operas. I'm not sure. I'm getting confused. But anyway, they would show like Rockford Files, Barnaby Jones. Stuff like that you might not get in another town.
Another thing, yeah, exactly.
So and then they would switch to the network or whatever at night. But yeah, actually I'm getting confused because NBC did have soap operas back then. So maybe there was another thing. Channels. I can only speak from where I used to live. There was a point where they flipped. Like NBC used to be channel 7, and then they became an independent channel, and the one that used to be CBS became NBC. It was very confusing. I don't remember it right now. It's a local thing.
Well, they would lose their license, and then another station would buy them. Then suddenly, it was kind of a wild.
It was
West
Wild West. That's the right word for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it you would see shows that nobody else would see because they were local. And you would think these great shows, and then you'd go like visit a relative, and you'd be talking about the show, or you'd go to watch on TV, and it's not there. Something else is on. It's like, what happened to like this show? Oh, what show? We never heard of that show. And you wouldn't think it was local, but you wouldn't think it was local.
Yeah.
You would think everybody had to. Yeah, I can remember the first time I went somewhere and they wanted to watch in Brooklyn. NBC was on Channel 4, but I wanted to see something And it was on NBC, so they put it on like Channel 7. Like, what? That's ABC. No, NBC's on Channel 7.
It's confusing. In the 90s,
Yeah.
in the 90s down there, we had Channel 6 independent. They became CBS. Channel 4 used to be CBS. Yeah. I think they became NBC. Channel 10 was always ABC. They became, they would say the same, but Channel 7, who lost NBC, then became Fox. It was like all this weird game playing with stations or whatever. It was very strange, but it never happened before. You know, I was there since the 60s. It never happened before, but that was a weird time.
Yeah, and that was also, I mean, radio stations would do that too. They would, you know, one day, you know, you're listening to your rock station, and then one day you turn it on and it's country.
Yeah, that was a weird one too. Yeah.
They changed.
Yeah, it was very strange, you know.
Different call letters, and they would change, you know, what their genre was.
And
or would disappear entirely, and like, what the hell happened to that?
And then what happened down in Miami in the 70s was there was two UHF channels, 23 and 51. All of a sudden, like in the mid 70s, they became Spanish channels, and then two other UHF channels popped up. So
yeah, it
was like you said, it was a Wild West. TV was a Wild West back then.
Yeah, it was interesting.
But you could see anything. You know, you could see. If you had like a cheap independent station, you could see anything, like stuff from like the 50s, 60s, 70s, you know. And now, of course, you have, like you said, the Roku, but, you know, it was easier to deal with when you had 5 channels, 6 channels, you know.
Oh, God, yeah.
Not thousands of channels.
I can remember there were a couple of stations that started up, and they would play these obscure 50s TV shows because they were cheap to get, and then as they got more popular, then they start, like, there was one channel would play these things like I Married Joan, which I never heard of, and the Gale Storm show, and all this stuff. Like, it was interesting to watch, and then suddenly they got more advertising, and then the next thing you know, they're playing like 3 episods of MASH.
Yeah, the Burns and Allen show, you know, Car 54, Where Are You, you know.
Yeah. But then as they got more money, they just bought bigger packages of stuff you see everywhere else, you know, and particularly MASH up here, though, and I hate MASH.
I do too.
It's just...
I do too. It went on forever. Rest in peace, Loretta Swit, who just passed away.
Yeah, wow.
She was 87, though.
I know, but when I hear that, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't.
I was watching something.
Yeah, I can't stand MASH, and MeTV plays it like 4 hours a night or something like that.
Oh God, I was watching something about Everybody Loves Raymond and the characters, and then like the 2 kids who played his twin sons. They were born in '95, I think.
They're in the 30s now.
And it's like, yeah, they're 30 now. I'm like, holy crap. You think like 30 years ago, I'm thinking like the 80s, the 70s. It's like, no.
Well, 30 years ago was the 90s, man.
90s, yeah. It's like, oh my God. Now I know what my parents felt like sometimes.
If you ever watch some episodes of The King of Queens, early ones, there's one episode in particular, they're at a video store renting VHS, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That was like many worlds ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Or even Seinfeld, where he had that giant little computer that was state-of-the-art, but it's like, man, that's so primitive. And they've got that giant cordless phone, and they have the answering machine built into the cradle for it. It's like, oh, answering machine.
Yeah, speaking of computer, I'm just going to, after next week, you pick a movie, but I got a movie for next week that's very... very prescient for today's, and it's on Rumble. So anyway, we'll do that. But anyway, we better get going because we don't want to go too much past an hour. Voodoo Woman, check it out. It's fun.
Excellent movie. Yeah, fun.
I think I posted it on Rumble. So if you want to go to Rumble, look around for it. I think it's there.
Yeah, perfect example of a good B movie.
Of AIP inventiveness.
Yeah. Good for Friday or Saturday night, or any night where you
or
can't
Saturday afternoon
creature
feature.
Yeah, Saturday. Yeah, exactly.
That's the one thing about AIP that I'll give them credit for. is they always got good actors. People who were good, and they were good actors. They weren't great actors, but they were good actors. Some of them were starting up, some of them were on their way down, but they carried the story. So.
Yep, it was good.
All right, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Roddy, take us away.
In the meantime, watch more.
Ooh, say it again. We couldn't hear that.
Okay. Watch more B-movies.
You know, when you hit the B movies, it like your frequencies just.
Oh,
it's
sorry.
Okay. Just watch more B movies, all right, people out there.
Yeah, watch more B movies. Damn it.